I've just achieved 3 consecutive promotions in Football Manager, and this is my tactic. Now, obviously, it hasn't been the same the entire run, but going from the 4th division in semi-pro to the La Liga in Spain in 3 years, it's got to be doing something right. And I'll show you in-match examples of how all of this works. And by the end of this video, you'll know everything about it, and probably more that you didn't even want to know. You know what I had for breakfast this morning? Peanut butter with a spoon. Like an adult. Now, this tactic works in 2 very distinct parts. It is able to apply a lot of pressure on the opponent when used right, while also, when particularly under pressure, being an incredibly defensive tactic. It is not a gegenpress. Get away from here, you stupid gegenpress. No, this is not some sort of maniac pressing tactic. And it's not some of that strikerless nonsense that got nerfed by the latest Football Manager update anyways. It's just a good tactic that if you get the right players for it, can win you a lot of games. And it starts obviously with a back 3, but you'll notice in possession, that back 3 has 3 different roles and 3 very different types of players. The central player is somebody like Simeon Petrov. This is somebody that is more no nonsense. Fortunately, because you have what essentially amounts to a back 5 in possession until you sustain possession long enough, there's always going to be somebody open for this person to pass to, so they don't need to be particularly good with the ball. Now, on that back line, we're going to start by focusing on a role that I've never really used before, which is overlapping center back. This is a specialty player in Alexi Olmedo that I managed to pick up while we were in the 3rd division. And it was one of the late additions to the tactic. In our first promotion, we didn't use an overlapping center back because there's nobody playing in the 4th division that can play it. Now, he's improved somewhat since we signed him in the 3rd division, but you're looking for somebody that is incredibly well-rounded, somebody that's going to have the ability to defend, obviously, but you're willing to sacrifice some of that for a general ability to play with the ball. Not just, technically with the touch and the passing, which is okay, but mentally. As a player that's going to be getting the ball in more offensive positions, they need to be able to handle the stress of that sort of situation, because they're going to be pairing up with your advanced wing back on the right side and whatever role you happen to want to use on your winger. For this instance, I'm using an inside winger, but to be perfectly honest, over the course of the life cycle of this tactic, I have used virtually every single one of these roles except for playmaking winger, depending on the strengths of the particular wing I'm using. The actual role of these wings, not hugely important. And the combination of these 3 players on the right side produces a massive wing overload. Now, the overload can materialize in a couple of different ways. The first way is this match, which I played in the 2nd division of Spain. You can see we're in possession and your center backs naturally take on this triangular shape, but Olmedo, who is an overlapping center back, is at the same level as my wide center back Madu Murcia on the other side. Except Olmedo is somebody that's going to look to be a little more aggressive. Now, in the initial start of this play, that draws this defender forward, allowing for a little layoff to our midfield playmaker, Paul Duran. Duran whips it out wide, and now we have a 2-for-1, right? Because the ball's moved up the field pretty quickly. Santos has space that he can play the ball in towards Miguel Carvalho, who's playing on the right wing. He eventually gets it to him, but what I want you to pay attention to is not what's happening over here, but what's happening back here. Paul Duran is the playmaker. He is dropping in to try and create passing lanes to help advance the ball. It is now advanced. He's not particularly athletic, so he's not getting up the field super fast. And the defense has managed to recover. We've got a hat on a hat, a man on a man over here once this ball's been played to Carvalho. That's when Alexi Olmedo comes rampaging up. We've got the winger checking back on Santos. The defense has been able to reset. But with Santos having drawn this defender and now 2 midfielders to account for pulling these defenders away, Alexi Olmedo is the extra man. There's just no defender there to account for him once we've advanced the ball well enough up the field. And it's not like our defensive structure is suffering here. If we take a tactical view, we still have our 2 center backs back. Olmedo's just thrown himself into the attack to be an extra man coming from a place that they are not expecting. Now, in this case, Olmedo takes the ball and actually is able to drive it into the bottom corner. Your center back is probably not going to be able to do that most of the time, and it's not like Olmedo's scoring 15 goals a year. He's scoring like 3 or 4, and half of them are on set pieces. And that's because this right side wing overload that I am applying, which you can also apply to the left side if you have, let's say a left-footed center back that is a similar sort of profile, more often it will work in a different way. This way. In this instance, the highlight starts from over here. So we already have them backed way in with a throw in. We work it around the horn and Olmedo picks up the ball in this location. He's positioning himself very aggressively. You can see Murcia dropping back. Olmedo is now up here next to Paul Duran, who is my midfield playmaker. Now, this is drawing the front half of the left side of their defense forward to Olmedo. And this is leaving us open right here for what is essentially a one-on-one situation. And the moment Nino is able to get inside of that, we have a complete wing overload on this side of the field because Olmedo is drawing this defense forward. Olmedo draws those defenders, finds Ibrahim, and all you need is the defense to slightly mess up their marking. Ibrahim with a beautiful little back heel goes to Nino. This guy's already checked towards Ibrahim. Nino sees the opening, and we just have a complete overload. I mean, Yanez obviously produces a particularly wonderful finish there, but we have them overwhelmed. Like, we've got them backed in, and they don't get their pressing right in that situation. Olmedo is drawing the extra defender, and if the extra defender is going to Olmedo, somebody else is going to be able to get open. And the very worst case scenario is you literally have one-on-one situations across the board. So the overlapping center back is not always designed to be somebody that's that far up the field. It just gives them license to do it. And every once in a blue moon, you will see your center back just sailing through the back line and getting a ball over the top. I've seen it happen one time, and it was awesome. And I thought about proposing to Alexi Olmedo after it happened, but most of the time they'll just get farther forward and draw that wide defense over to them, and considering we already have an advanced wingback and a winger on this side of the field, they're going to be overwhelmed. There's just not enough defenders to be able to handle that. And if they try to, you can punish them. What about the other side of the field? We have a wide center back, which it gets involved in the play obviously a bit more than that central center back, but the wide center back is not going to be given the license to go up the field in the same way as the overlapping center back. How is this tactic able to create with just the two? Well, if I got a highlight for you. It starts with our wide center back, Madu Murcia, standing on top of the ball. This is our second match in La Liga at home against Alaves. We would go on to win 4-2, which this tactic's not really designed to be in that kind of a shootout, but still. Madu Murcia is standing on the ball and flips it over to our advanced left wing back, in this case, Marv De Lima, a guy who's actually a natural winger that we've kind of just forced to play deeper, which is something you can absolutely do in this tactic. Now, De Lima has drawn their first wide defender. This is their right back, or right wing back in this case, Perotti. And because Perotti has come up, we have now had a midfielder in Blanco move over to try and check Habib. Now, if you've got a left wing back that can do what Marv De Lima just did and get by this guy, the defense starts to break down immediately. And because he's faster than their right back or whatever they got going on, it is now a foot race to a spot. Because this player now has a choice. Stay here and wait and let Habib receive the ball completely for free and pick out whatever pass he wants, or go with Habib and leave this channel open for Marv De Lima. He decides to wait, and they're able to close off the whole situation and restore something resembling good defense. But my talented young winger, Victor Habib stays patient and plays another through ball to De Lima, who continues his run. And these advanced wingbacks will be maniacs. They go all the way up the field and play basically as a winger when you have the ball. So they're just underlapping each other. And this is with inside winger and advanced wingback playing on this side. I've seen this happen with winger as well. There is just an intelligence that if your players kind of understand the tactic enough and where the space is, that when one's really wide, the other one will cut underneath. Let's watch this again. Madu Murcia to De Lima, plays it to Habib, undercut by De Lima. De Lima makes that underlapping run, receives the ball. Now he's going to stop and turn around and look wide for an option. It's at this point that we're literally moving the defense like this, right? They've had to shift over, come inside, down. Now we're going over. Like, we're just putting them in a spin cycle here. De Lima brings the ball back, and look who's coming underneath him. Victor Habib. And Habib eventually is able to slip away from a defender who's way out of position in the first place and doesn't know what the hell's going on. You find Habib, you find a goal. Because we have now dragged these defenders on a, Dora the Explorer breaking out the map type adventure, they're not in the right positions anymore. They don't really know what's going on, and you're going to create mistakes. Basically, on offense, it's like playing with two wingers at all times. Hold on, I missed the crowd noise. It calms me. That's all the offensive side of the ball, particularly how it plays on the wings. The most important thing to remember about this tactic is it is defense first. Now, there is a 4-position movement between in possession and out of possession. You'll notice in possession, the midfielders are higher. Out of possession, they both drop. I've alternated, which side is the pressing defensive midfielder. I just want one being a little more aggressive and going out and engaging in this space a little bit. Both of the wing backs, and this is where it's really difficult to find players that can play this position, drop back to fullback. The reason, by the way, that I ended up playing this tactic in the first place was as a way to accommodate an incredibly talented left wing back I had named Francisco Varela, who could play in this style of system. And ever since then, we have been able to cultivate some players that are able to also play in this system, and they've started to even come in through our youth intake. But as I mentioned earlier, with somebody like Marv de Lima, it's not necessarily important to have a great defender. You can see he doesn't even know how to play that fullback defensive spot. I just put him there anyways. And Marv de Lima, as you can notice over his career, particularly in the last 2 divisions, has laid down really tremendous performances, because most of the important contributions that can be done from this spot on the field are offensively. Defensively, you want them to be there and just be able to obstruct. Honestly, if they dive in too much, they can leave you more exposed. But despite the fact that this is a defense-first tactic, that it is designed to keep the other team from scoring, it can still concede. Obviously, there's no tactic that's never going to concede. This is what the basic defensive instructions look like. There's a high press with a more often, but not way more often, trigger press setup. This, starts the engagement pretty early. It doesn't give them completely free possession. And the general principle in my mind is designed to funnel them towards my defense, which is then a wall of 7. So we're creating some sort of press that pushes them against my defense and eventually breaks into a turnover that we can exploit. Get stuck in, counter press is on, so when we turn the ball over, I'm okay with my team staying higher. That is absolutely something you want to turn off when you're playing against a team that is way better than you. You want to sprint back to that defensive position before they're able to counter you. And step up more. I don't want to invite pressure past a certain point. That would kind of ruin my defensive principle of crushing the team in between my 2 lines if we just kept backing. In fact, backing up too far is really the way this tactic loses defensively. Let me show you. So this is a match we ended up losing 3-1 to Girona. Not a very good performance from us. And that's because this team was able to consistently back us farther up than we wanted to back up. The problem with playing a flat back 5 is that there isn't really a second line of defense there. So for the third goal, we have Girona in a pretty normal position. Their center back is in possession of the ball. We have our normal shape, but as the ball advances, Brian Gill drops. This draws my right fullback forward. It's played underneath my right fullback, at which point they're able to go kind of inside out and get us all the way to the end line. This is the problem with that back 5. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plus Matos, my midfielder, who has followed a run in here. This leaves literally just Paul Duran minding the area all up in here, which is just not enough because we leave our front 3 up the field. We defend in a block of 7. None of those guys are tracking players. And so once this happens, once we've been taken all the way to the end line and Matos has followed the run, there's so much empty space for them to be able to drag the ball back and tee off. But as you were probably hoping, there are ways to address this. My favorite way is when in opposition instructions, for the next team you can see we're playing against Real Madrid, you turn off tight marking and trigger press on players that you believe are going to drag you away. So for instance, Brian Gill's the player that is dragging my back line too far out of position. I would go in and turn off trigger press on him because he's dropping deep enough that he is going to move my defense around and open up channels for players to play in that are going to drive me all the way to the end line. So I'm going to go in and turn off trigger press on those players. It also might become imperative over the course of the match to actually lower the back line. You can do this, in my opinion, in 2 ways. First, in the out of possession, you can create a tracking winger. On the side that is a problem, it's going to hurt your goal scoring ability a little bit, but that winger is going to be able to drop. It's even possible to move them positionally further back if you feel like it. Then, of course, you can actually lower the back line in the instructions. You can go with something like this, in which case you might want to mess with dropping your pressing a little bit. I would be wary of that, because it could just naturally be inviting so much pressure depending on the type of team that you're playing against that you're going to end up screwed and giving up that spot at the top of the box anyways. I would really try to find a solution in the opposition instructions and in the actual player roles of your defense, even if it's lowering both wingers and leaving that striker up there all alone, which is going to make it very difficult for you to count. But you have to be conscious of what plays are happening that drag this team all the way back to the end line, because then you're in trouble. But it's also possible with a flat back five defensively to have it pulled out of position when they're not actually breaking you down to the end line. Now for this, I have a few examples, because it is often the most frequent way that I get beat. This is in my match against Barcelona, which is hilarious considering we've been promoted 3 straight times. That is a problem. And Barcelona's playing a pretty standard formation, but their 2 strikers are giving me problems. Now, I'm going to freeze it here. Youssoufa Moukoko has dropped in, Simeon Petrov has followed him. This gives Dani Olmo a Mack truck-sized channel to charge through, and all he has to do is beat Madu Murcia. I really don't want Simeon Petrov stepping forward to engage with one forward when there is another forward to go through. And this is what allowed Youssoufa Moukoko to carve me up all day, and they get their chances in on goal. Because we're stepping up. Right, we're not looking to drop when this pressure comes in. So if they're able to time their runs, they can get serious channels to play in. So you have to be proactive with your eyes. What we want to happen in this situation is Simeon Petrov to not react. If there is a striker that is frequently dropping in, whether they're a complete forward or on down to a deep lying forward, a false 9 even, or just the other one's a poacher and this guy just happens to be the guy that the ball is funneling to in the flow of the match, you want to turn off trigger press and tight mark on that player. Because in that instance, Simeon Petrov is not going to be as aggressive in closing this down. He's going to maintain the line, and the actual goal-scoring move of opening up this lane for Dani Olmo to run into isn't going to happen. So before matches, if you have a multi-striker setup or a one-striker setup where that striker is looking to drop in with inside forwards or wide forwards cutting in from wide areas, you want to not close down on that player, not tight mark that player, and allow your defense to hold a more natural position and kind of zone off whatever they're trying to do. Of course, that gives Youssoufa Moukoko the ball kind of unimpeded 35, 40 yards out, but it also prevents the layup alley-oop they just pulled off and allows your defense to then recover and contest Youssoufa Moukoko. Because that's what you want. You want your defensive midfielders to track back and pick up that second level, and you want your back 3 on defense to be zoning off any potential moves, only going out to meet them when they come to you, not when they run away from you and you chase them. That is where you get in trouble. So in that sense, this tactic is very good for learning how to apply opposition instructions. And in fact, there are a few opposition instructions that I basically always leave on. I want wingbacks of any kind to be tight marked. Wingbacks are dangerous, they're line splitters, they arrive in places you do not want them to arrive in. That is kind of the point of our tactic in the first place. I have a tight mark on them always. Central midfielders, very prone to dangerous runs that can split your back line. With the new update, they're supposed to be better at marking deep runs that come from these spots. I don't necessarily trust it yet. I leave a tight mark there. And if there is a striker in the middle, we have 3 center backs. We can play zone defense here. I do not tight mark. I do not trigger press as a matter of principle if there's just one central striker, because so often when you play with one central striker, they're going to receive the ball, and if you're just using one striker, somebody else, a midfielder, a winger, is making that run in behind, and that's going to draw Petrov or whoever else I have in there forward and open that same channel Dani Olmo just used to score. Now, I don't want to just show you an example of our defense not working well, because I've had the best defense in the league, almost consecutive years through the 3rd division, through the 2nd division, and we do have a very good defense again in the 1st division, even though we've just been promoted 3 straight times. We've given up just 20 goals this season in 18 matches, which, considering we've been promoted 3 straight times and I have the reputation of a high 3rd division team, we're doing absolutely tremendously well there. Only the 3 teams ahead of us in the league, which, yeah, I know. Look, we're not going to finish in the top 4. It's super cool that we're there. But the fact that Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Villarreal, which is a regular European team. So I'm very proud of our defensive ability over the course of this season so far. So here's the defense in motion. They're trying to progress the ball up the right side. Ibrahim presses that, but he's not actually going to get beat down the field by this guy. We're picking up everybody right now. We've got our right-sided defender, Almeida, picking this up. That's not opening any channels for any players that they're trying to use. And if they try to make that pass anyways to my boy Shitov, Yamyogo in this case is there. I would love, if he played with more composure instead of just lopping it out, but that's fine. They enter the ball into the wing. We've got our flat back 5. Everybody's in the right assignment right now. Ball goes into the middle. We've got a squeeze with our winger and our midfielder in Matos, so he ends up playing it back. We've got good numbers in each position, and even though we only have 2 players in the middle right now, you see we're either forcing the huge switch or we're making them play through a crowd. Talia does play through that crowd, but fortunately, Alex Matos is immediately, because we have high work rate midfielders, he's immediately on that spot when this guy's trying to cut in. He's able to actually win the ball. And because we keep our wingers in a pretty advanced position, the counter is on, Quieto gets into a nice spot, and cashes a goal. Cashes the check. You get it. The way those wingers play is when that ball is in that kind of middle area. Once it crosses the halfway line, those wingers are, part of the activity, part of the press. We get stuck in. We press a little bit more once that ball comes over the halfway line. Obviously, if it gets all the way down, the wingers aren't necessarily as involved in the defense, but as long as they're in that area, you can see the squeeze. They're trying to get through that area, and there's just not a lot of room for them to be able to play through. And as long as we're not getting drawn forward on the back line, guys like Yamyogo can get down there and cut the ball off, and then the counter's on the moment we can force a turnover. Now, there's typically one more area of concern, and that is the ability to break the press. So here are the actual instructions in possession in an overview. We have a standard tempo and shorter passing. We like to build the play up, keep the ball in play when it comes to the set piece situation. We want to work the ball in the box, discourage long shots because I hate them. They're the bane of my existence. Crossing style, I vary depending on the size and aerial ability of my wingers and striker. Right now, we're short, and so we go with low crosses. We focus our progression through the flanks with dribbling encouraged. We want our wing, we have a lot of dribbly guys. Wingers advance forward or dribbly guys. We want them taking on the opponent. We want to play through, short, distribute quickly to center backs. Get the ball out to the center backs. And one of the most important things you can do in Football Manager or anywhere else is be able to break the press. It's basically a quarter of the entire sport, it feels like. And this tactic gives you a really good ability to do that. Obviously, 2 of your 3 center backs need to be good on the ball relative to your level, right? And if you're playing 5th division or whatever in England, this is going to be different than if you're playing top flight anywhere else. I'll go over in more detail the requirements of every position kind of right at the end. But coming out of the press, we've got that short distribution. We have a triangle of center backs that just arrays itself on the short distribution. And we've got a pretty standard press coming here. The ball goes to Olmedo. Now, because both of my wide center backs are really good with the ball, Olmedo's able to pick out a really wonderful pass to Gabriel Johnson in the midfield. So the first press breaking move is going to be that pass. What's really insane is this is our wing back right here. So the real press breaking maneuver is once you're able to transition from those midfielders to the front half of your team. Because once you have the ball for long enough and once you start your possession from the back of your team, those wing backs are up. Your press breaking is those 3 center backs in that triangle and 2 midfielders out in front of them. Now, of course, as you get it wide to one of those center backs, they have 2 options. They can either play the pass that Olmedo just played, nice little arrow there, or we can put another arrow into this space. Olmedo can play that ball wide to either the wingback or the winger who's going to be checking back to receive the ball, in which case they've got the other one of those 2 to be able to play the ball to forward. Now, this break was particularly nice with the win of the header by Santos. Now we've got a little 2-man game. Lopez finds a check back, and boom, we've gone press break to goal. If you are able to successfully break the press and get that ball to the outside, either around or through the midfield, you're going to be able to very quickly get an odd-numbered rush because those wingbacks and wingers are flying. The real danger in this tactic, in the press break, I mean, for everybody in the press break, it's when you turn the ball over, but if you are breaking the press long enough and your wingbacks are already all the way up and you turn it over, you're going to be in trouble. Fortunately, you will have those 3 center backs back there to figure it out and one of your midfielders that is responsible defensively. There's also another press breaking tool here that I'm going to show you through this tactic screen and a few little arrows. And that's this guy, Paul Duran. The midfield playmaker drops. He drops a lot. He drops into this space. He drops into this space. Sometimes he'll even go deeper than your overlapping center back or your wide center back to be able to get on the ball. The midfield playmaker hunts the ball. So if you are stuck in possession back there, if your players stay composed, use the goalkeeper, whatever, your midfield playmaker is going to drop into that space. Now, there are a couple of keys to players in this tactic that I just want to make obvious. Your wingers need to be able to pass better than normal wingers. You can get by with one that can't pass at all. If you have 2 that can't pass at all, they're just required to pass too much. It is too pass heavy of a system for the wingers to handle if they all suck at passing. They're just going to be shipping the ball all over the place because they usually end up here. in this little half space with the advanced wingback around them. Of course, sometimes they end up out here with the advanced wingback inside of them, in which case they need to be able to pick out that pass as well. You can get wingers that are very, very good goal scorers. You can get wingers that are very dribbly. Those are great. They just can't be diabolically bad at passing. It's going to cause problems. You also need to have decent athletic ability from your players that play in these spots. I like my left midfielder to be incredibly well-rounded, like an Ebenezer Atkinson-Miro. I have had him. I've had Alex Matos. Both of those guys have been just absolutely tremendous for me in this spot. You see the work rate. You see the ability to defend, the ability to attack. They are smart. They can move, right? They're not unbelievable at anything, but they're unbelievable in the sense that they're bad at nothing. At the other spot, my playmaker, I have a really unique player in Paul Duran. He's not overly athletic. He's developed a lot. He used to have, pace at 9 or whatever, but he's very technical and very smart. And so as a guy that's wandering the field to try and get in positions to get on the ball, he obviously has a very good sense of where to be. And with his concentration and just general decision-making and composure, he's plugged in, right? He's always plugged into the match. He's always moving around to get into the right spot. And even though he's not a great athlete, his defensive ability is there, right? He is not somebody that's a pushover defensively, so when he drops to that defensive midfield spot, he can be pressed. It is possible to accommodate one midfielder that doesn't defend well, but they need to be able to move well, right? And that is where I use a guy like Gabriel Johnson. Right, he's an unusually good defender, but I use him because I point him out because he's not a guy that can play that defensive midfield spot. But I am okay, the same as I'm okay with forcing DeLima to drop into that spot. I'm okay forcing this guy to drop into that spot. You don't want both of your guys to be like that. You need at least one to be chill. I like to have the playmaker on the side of my overlapping center back, so if you're going to do this on the left, you want to move that to the other side. Now, your wingbacks can come in all sorts of varieties. They can be defense-first athletes that just get up there and provide a body that are really good at that. They can be really well-rounded, like my boy Max Hennig here. He's just kind of good at everything. They can be like DeLima, where he's literally a winger and he drops back. Ibrahim's basically a midfielder that I just have out playing at right wing back. As long as they can play these two positions comfortably, there are a lot of options that you can go for in that position. The central center back is the one that doesn't need to be great at passing, because the big decision-making moments on the ball are going to be from your two outside center backs. So somebody like Simeon Petrov, very happy to get this guy, right? He's fast, he's tall, he's strong, he has technical defensive ability and the mental ability to play center back. This is a guy that I want being able to read when passes are coming in, make that play. When the ball comes at them in the air, this is the number one eraser. He matches up with the target forward and heads the ball away, and it works out very well. Then at wide center back, I have Madu Murcia. You'll notice he's very similar to Olmedo, right? He is very smart. He has a good rounded athleticism. He's not a bad defender, but he definitely offers a good ability on the ball. He has the ball. He's going to be able to make the right pass more often than not, especially in lower levels. You're typically going to find those types of players dropping out of big academies where they just don't have that top-end potential, but they get a really well-rounded attribute base. So, like, I got Madu Murcia from the Barcelona Academy. I got Olmedo from the Barcelona Academy. They just dropped out of the B team, and I scooped them both up. At forward, whatever you want. I've had 6'5" guys up here that we just lop big high crosses into and they finish the play off. Right now we've signed Adrian Nino. He is a pacey guy. He's not like he's short or anything. He's not overly technically impressive. He's just a guy that runs around, shows a lot of energy. He's a good outlet. You can have a deep lying forward type and have your wingers be the main offensive threat and your advanced wingbacks. You don't need a ton of goals out of this striker position, but most often this striker is going to need to be able to receive the ball in some sort of hold-up fashion. They can't be terrible in terms of first touch and passing and heading, right? They need to either be a target forward, deep lying forward, or if they're going to be an advanced forward or poacher type, they need to at least have a little first touch so that they can, that they're basically not giving the ball away every time you play off this striker. You've seen in one of the highlights we looked at where a ball goes off Nino, he needs to be able to receive that ball. This isn't necessarily a tactic where we're looking to just play this guy in over the top every time, but it wouldn't take a lot to change to make that happen. Just playing balls into space and upping the tempo a little bit and trying to play him into the channels. I feel like that would work with this tactic. Last bit, how do you adjust when you're chasing the match? Either get rid of a center back and bring in a striker or attacking midfielder that you want to move up. You can move these guys up defensively in this fashion and then turn up the pressure. This allows you to press more effectively. You do not want to turn this stuff on in the instructions unless you change your shape. If you just turn that stuff on, then they're going to be trying to run out from super deep. They're not going to get there in time. You want to be able to meet them in the field where they are. So raise those 4 guys back up, put one of these guys on pressing like that, and then you're going to be able to put a lot more pressure on the other team. And you can also go double overlapping center backs. This obviously leaves you exposed in that your rest defense is essentially just one guy back there instead of the normal two. That makes you way more comfortable. But if you have possession long enough, then the other center back is also going to launch himself forward and draw an extra defender the way that, you know, you've seen Olmedo do. But yeah, the late game chase is get rid of the middle center back and just bring in another strike. It occupies more defenders and opens more things up for your wingers, and obviously you've got another warm body to aim for in the box. And as always, I guess I should mention it, turn up your tempo and passing directness. I don't like going over standard if I'm just using one striker, but yeah, jack all that stuff up to chase a game. But this tactic got me 3 straight promotions, and hopefully it's able to help you out. And now that you know how it works, you can mod it too. The Steam download link is down in the description. I'll see you on stream as we continue the Malia journey. Hell yeah. On Twitch and Zealand Live YouTube. 2 places the streams are, just in case your work is blocking one.